You know, you might have an opinion on this too, Chris. The ones that are confusing to me in the literature are zone and flow. You know, whether zone and flow, and they've debated that for a long period of time. So I'm not sure really what the answer is to that one, but at any rate, I guess I would consider them different. But synchronicity is what we've been measuring so long in the brain when people perform well. And what we find is that all the areas of the brain are very synchronized. And then these people will tell us it feels like the zone. That's their interpretation of it. But we just know that when everything gets very because we're measuring consciousness, we're not necessarily going subconscious. We just measure consciousness. When all of this gets done with its activity, you know, and one piece isn't out of balance or still processing, you're there. It really, you're engaged to the point where you're going to the subconscious, which is probably the zone.
Most of us never learned how to train our brains, which is why most of us needlessly settle, struggle, and worse, suffer. My name is Chris Doris, and I want to make brain training mainstream. This is my series, Tough Talks, Conversations on Mental Toughness. I'm interviewing badasses from all walks of life on what mental toughness means to them and their unique approaches to strengthening their minds. Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to Tough Talks, Conversations on Mental Toughness. I'm your host, Chris Doris. And before we get to our guest today, our housekeeping item is if you're not getting my daily dose mental toughness tips in 30 seconds or less delivered to your email inbox every single morning of every day of the year, right around 6 a.m., wherever you are in the world, as long as you sign up for it when you're in your home time zone, then let's change that. Let's make sure you get those, because those are gold. And if you're not getting my weekly blog posts that come out on Tuesdays, and if you are not getting these Tough Talks episodes sent to you, notifications sent to you, which come out every other Thursday, then let's take care of all of that together in one fell swoop by going to ChristopherDoris.com/lists, LISTS. ChristopherDoris.com/lists. Our guest today has been a friend of mine for almost 30 years. I'm going to quiz her on that. She's going to get it. She's a numbers person. She's going to know. But about 27 years, or 27 years, not about. Yeah. Well, so when I did my internship, in graduate school with the men's golf team at Arizona State University. And then that turned into a job. Hired me. The late, great Coach Randy Lyon hired me for the next decade after that. So this is where I met our guest, Dr. Debbie Cruz Ketterling. I had to look at the paper because Ketterling, well, I never knew that. Well, that's her married name. So I knew her as Dr. Debbie Cruz. And I really do encourage you to Google her, because you're going to find so much cool stuff. It's like, God, she is literally a legend. In the world of sports psychology, she is legendary. This is her resume. Yep, that's right. That's 8 pages of like TV shows, books. Oh, she's got 6 books on Amazon. So you can go look those up. She's done a million research studies. She's been on all these TV shows. She's been on HBO with Brian Gumbel, Real Sports. She did NBC Dateline. She's done PBS stuff with Alan Alda. I want to ask her about all those things, because that's just cool. She does all this research on the brain and peak performance. And, she really works primarily with athletes, primarily golfers, but not only. But what I want to do today is I want to pick her brain, and I'm going to work here. I'm going to do some work, okay? And I'm doing it for me, and I'm doing it for you, which is I want to take what her expertise and see if we can apply some of her wisdom, like in her observations on peak performance in like sports, primarily golf, to the rest of the world, to those of us that aren't golfers, and see what we can take away and learn from that. So that's what we're going to do. All right. So Debbie is here. Let's go find her. There she is, my friend, Dr. Debbie Cruz Ketterling. How are you, my dear friend?
I'm doing well, Chris. I sincerely appreciate the offer to come talk with you. We always have a interesting conversation.
We always have. And you know how long we've been having them?
Oh, I don't know, 30 years?
Yep.
Is that right?
Almost.
Almost 30?
27 to be exact.
Wow, that's awesome.
I know, isn't that amazing?
Back to the ASU days.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yep, it was 1994 when I started, when I did my internship with the men's golf team, and you were with the women's golf team since the 70s, right?
Yeah. I came back actually in 94 from North Carolina, Greensboro. I was there 5 years, but I started in 79 with them, with ASU.
Yeah. So I told people all about you in the introduction, but I want to reiterate so you hear it. That's not blowing smoke. You are in the world of sports psychology, mental coaching, and golf. You're a legend.
Oh,
you have achieved serious celebrity status.
oh,
I mean, like, whose resume is 8 pages long?
oh.
Are you kidding me with this? It took me 2 hours just to read this.
You've done your homework, Chris.
Well, it's easy to research you. In fact, I want to encourage everybody listening. Seriously, just Google Dr. Debbie Cruz, and you'll be amazed. You'll just give yourself time. If you do that, don't have something to do for like the next hour.
Oh.
Okay, because you'll be fascinated with the endless amount of research. You've been on like every channel, TV channel that exists.
We've had more good opportunities to do interesting studies, and that the most fun study was the NBC Dateline choking study, I have to say. But you do a lot of studies over the years, and the ones for TV, they make a big difference.
Can we go there for a second? Can we
sure,
just
yeah,
the NBC Dateline on choking? Talk to us about choking. Well, okay, hold on. I'm sorry. I really wanted to ask you another question first, though, and then we'll get to that. Okay, is that cool?
Sure.
So the reason that I even do this podcast, all right, note to self, get back to NBC Dateline choking. The reason I even do this podcast is, and the reason it's called Tough Talks, Conversations on Mental Toughness, is because I want my audience to hear all different kinds of impressions and definitions and experiences of what mental toughness means to different people. You and I have had many a lunch together.
I remember when you wanted to put together the questionnaire for it.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So we just geek out on all things psychological and mental and brain related. But I'd love to hear your definition, if you have one. And mental toughness, I don't even know if that's in your nomenclature, if you use that language or not. But if you have a definition of mental toughness, I'd love to hear it.
Well, what I usually change it to, Chris, is mental integrity. And I use integrity because, well, especially, in the game of golf, for example, it's so to believe if the player has integrity, it takes care of the toughness. And, in my picture of that is when you have integrity, you always rise above. And so when you rise above, you usually come out ahead. And working at ASU all these years, in their athletic department, they have a hierarchy of what's important for athletics. And at the very top is integrity. So I kind of like to go with that one.
I love that. Well, how do you define integrity?
Well, I looked it up, and it has to do a lot with some physiological terms of tension, etc. But at any rate, integrity is being yourself and playing in accordance with your values and worthy and respectful of who you are.
That's fantastic. Thank you for that.
Oh, that's my definition. But
that's what we're interested in. That's exactly what we're interested in hearing, is your definition, you as an ultimate expert in the field. So that's really spectacular. I've never heard that. So, okay, let's go to the NBC.
Dateline study?
Joking, yeah.
Quick little background on it. The people who were running the show called up Dan Landers, you remember, who we worked with at ASU, and He was my mentor, and they wanted to do a study on choking right after Greg Norman choked in the Masters. And so because it was golf, Dan handed it to me, and I talked to the people and said, well, I don't study choking. I study attention, and I had told them about this study I'd done at Greensboro where people were putting, and for every putt they missed, I did a finger prick blood draw. And we had one of those terrible guns that would shoot your finger, and they putt 20 putts. I had people with 13 finger pricks by the time we were done. And I was trying to create the feeling of loss that they have when you miss a putt. And so they said, well, can we do that on TV? And I said, sure. And then I wanted to add in money conditions and national television so we could really get the stress off, because in the lab, it's hard to make stress. If we can get their heart rate up 10 beats per minute, we're doing pretty good. So they came up with national TV and money conditions and all this. And Chris, we were able to double their heart rates. 70s to 140. No, their legs were shaking. It was so fun. Their heart was
so fun. We scared the shit out of them. It was so fun.
And half of them, we tested a bunch, but half of them choked and half didn't. And the crazy thing is, the way it turned out is the half that didn't choke had more competitive experience, but it wasn't necessarily golf. They all played golf, but one was a football player at ASU going to the Rose Bowl the next week. Two were professional soccer players. One was a minor league baseball player, and one was a girl that did high school golf. Yeah. And these are the people that they just used what they knew about playing under pressure, and they rolled the ball in.
Because they had more familiarity with the circumstance.
Yeah, and it didn't matter where it came from. That's what I always think is fascinating.
I love that. It doesn't matter at all where it comes. So it's just any kind of competitive experience is useful in any other competitive experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's
so
cool.
That one was a lot of fun.
That's cool. Yeah, it's like your list of studies, papers, research is, well, like I said, it's 8 pages long. It's extensive. Yeah, I loved. You know who else's name I saw in here somewhere? There it is. D. Linder.
Oh, Darwin Linder. Yes.
You know, he was my supervisor for my internship when I worked with the golf team. He's the guy that got me started. He taught me all the basics. Dan Landers introduced me to Darwin Linder.
Yeah, that would make sense. Darwin was great. He wrote a paper off of that NBC choking study.
Oh, really? That's cool.
Yeah.
Can you make a clarification for me?
Well, what would it be?
It's the difference. Okay, so are you a fan of the term the zone?
I use it carefully.
Yeah. Well, so I read somewhere that they may have been exaggerating. I think it was a Golf Channel Golf Night. Oh, whatever, Golf Digest.
Right.
Something like that. Guy Yoakum wrote the piece, I think.
Yeah. On the zone.
He's funny, but he said in that article that you hate the term. You said you loathe the term the zone. He may have been taking some writer's liberty there, and that you prefer the term synchronicity.
Yes, that's right.
That's accurate. Can you explain that?
That's very true.
Okay.
You might have an opinion on this too, Chris. The ones that are confusing to me in the literature are zone and flow. Whether zone and flow are, and they've debated that for a long period of time. So I'm not sure really what the answer is to that one, but at any rate, I guess I would consider them different. But synchronicity is what we've been measuring so long in the brain when people perform well. And what we find is that all the areas of the brain are very synchronized. And then these people will tell us it feels like the zone. That's their interpretation of it. But we just know that when everything gets very, because we're measuring consciousness, we're not necessarily going subconscious. We just measure consciousness. When all of this gets done with its activity, and one piece isn't out of balance or still processing, you're there. You're engaged to the point where you're going to the subconscious, which is probably the zone.
So how do you do that on purpose?
Well, uh, I used to teach in my classes, at ASU, that you couldn't put yourself there, that you get everything ready, and then when you get the chance to fall into it, you ride it as long as you can. But I don't believe that anymore, Chris. I started reading everything on the adventure sport athletes. And the adventure sport athletes that ride the waves and skateboarders and rock climbers, they know how to get in the zone. And the reason they do is because if they don't, they're going to die. So, yeah, and there's been some interesting research on it.
Climb free.
I'm sorry?
I'm just trying to think of the movie. I don't know if you saw it or not. I did not see
Oh,
it.
yeah.
What's it called?
The rock climber.
Yeah.
Yeah, fascinating. And they did study him as well in terms of, I'd say, neutralizing the parts of the brain related to fear, the amygdala.
Yeah. Okay. So talk more about how do we do it? So you've totally changed your tune. That's fascinating. I love that you're owning that. That's pretty neat. And that's because you're always sharpening your saw. It's one of the things I love about
you. Well, we attempt
your curiosity.
So when we kept looking at brain maps and doing training studies in the lab, I wanted to train this among people so that they could do it for themselves. So we created a neurofeedback system we call Opti. And Opti, all it is doing is taking whatever locations we're looking at. We can use any headset, but whatever the locations are, and then the frequencies, and it synchronizes all of them. The more synchronized they are, the better you're going to perform. And once again, the athletes are telling us that it feels like the zone, that's where we're taking them. And so that's why I prefer synchronicity to the zone.
Well, I love the term synchronicity because my boy, Carl Jung, I think, is responsible for coining it.
Oh, is that right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I'm going with that.
Yeah. Synchronicity, balance, coherence. We measure it as coherence in the brain. Yeah.
So so I actually had a lunch with you where you put that device on my head, and I was fascinated by it. So Opti, I don't remember which one it was, but you have these products, and we'll get to that. We'll talk at the end. We'll talk about those. But so what is the person doing?
To get the music low to make it work. Okay, here's the trick. When we what happens is they put the headset on, and then there's 3 levels of volume to it, and they can pick any song they wanted. So the song's playing, and their brain is running the volume of music. If they get into synchronization, the volume is low. So after they've done it, we ask them, "Oh, how did you do that?" And the majority of them have no clue. And at first, I was quite concerned about that because they think, well, if I don't know how I'm doing it, how am I going to take it to work, or how am I going to take it to the golf course and everything? But then I got to thinking about it. If I told you, okay, I want you to blink 3 times and you'll be in the zone, blink, blink, you would laugh, right? So the fact that they can't tell me exactly how they do it is why I think it's taking them to the zone, because you can't put it in words. Now, you can do some things to help yourself get closer.
Okay.
Breathing. A lot of them will use breathing and just that quiet focus. A lot of them will use their visual focus because our attention will follow our visual focus. So some of them fine tune and look very specifically at one item. I have an archer, a high level archer, and he pretty much, after he trained, looks at a blade of grass. And if he's out on the range, all he has to do now is look at the blade of grass, and he'll get into the state he wants.
Why?
Because he trained it with the headset and the music.
Okay.
So he created the skill.
Oh, that's brilliant.
He learned the skill, and then he can use the blade of grass stimulus response.
Right. Okay. Classical conditioning.
Yeah.
So there's always grass when he's competing.
Yeah.
That's why I picked it, right?
Yeah.
So I love that. That is so brilliant and so fascinating.
Yeah.
So if you hook him up to biofeedback, he looks at the grass. What kind of feedback do you get?
Well, he won't get it from the grass, but see, the neurofeedback, it just teaches you a skill. Okay. And to me, the most valuable thing about the zone is not staying in it, whatever you want to call it. It's being able to dial it in at will, by choice. So if I can dial it in whenever I choose, that's what's gold. It's skill. It's just training this muscle. And so he'll go, look at his blade of grass and it'll dial him in. For how long, I don't know, but it doesn't matter because he can dial himself in again.
So let's go back to like those surfers who surf like 40, 50-foot ridiculous,
waves,
life-threatening waves in the North Shore. How might a surfer train themselves to be able to quiet the parts of the brain that create fear? Because I mean, I get scared watching it.
Okay, well, if you can synchronize all of it, there won't be one part that's out of balance. And the sensors we use actually are right here, temporal, and that's anxiety. That the amygdala is right there and stuff. So really, we're training that to be in sync with everything else. And so it's not going to go. If it goes way out of sync, then the music volume will tell you that. So somebody like a surfer would probably train away from the water, before they go out, because all they have to do is learn the skill. And then once they know they can dial it in, then when they're in the wave, they'll be able to dial it in. And the wave is going to help them dial it in because of the risk, the high risk.
Oh, why? Okay, that's interesting. Oh, wow. Okay, let's slow that down because that might be a little counterintuitive to people.
That's right.
Right? Because the presence, I think the popular, like if we had this on a survey, most people would say, no, the presence of risk would have me be scared. But you're saying that these trained competitors actually leverage the presence of risk to enhance performance.
That's how they learn to go in the zone. They had to learn to do that to stay alive. Okay, so like our golfers and stuff, Chris, they don't have that much risk, but I always tell them it's that important to them. Lots of times how they perform is that important to them. So if they can learn the high risk sports can learn to do it, we can learn to do it.
Anyone.
I mean,
anyone can. So like yeah. People in sales.
Right. That's exactly right. Yeah. So the more challenging the contract or whatever it happens to be, the more challenging the sale, the more they're going to rise above and get their brain in a very good place, dial in their synchronicity and perform unbelievably well.
Do you ever do any work around the behavior of complaining?
No. It would be an interesting one, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be. It sure would be, because I'd like to know what's going on specifically in the mind. I mean, I know that complaining doesn't have me be amazing. That's clear just from looking at how I am.
Right.
But I would be interested, and this is why I always love geeking out with you, because you back it all up. You back everything up with all this brilliant data. But I would be really interested in knowing like what's going on inside when I'm.
Now you make me want to go look it up in research.
All right, I'm standing by, Doc.
I can write it down, Chris.
Look at you! This is brilliant. Hey, I heard rumor has it, word on the street is that you have a good Alan Alda story.
Oh yes, he's such a great actor and a really nice guy.
Yeah.
But we did a fun study with Alan Alda. He's never played golf, just popped out with his grandkids. And he came to the lab and with Scientific American Frontiers, and the goal of the story was to influence his mental state and see what it would do to his performance, because he has absolutely no skill. And if you watched him putt, you would see he has no skill.
Game.
Yeah. So we put him on a balance board and got his brain balanced, which works quite well.
A balance board?
Yeah, just a balance board in the lab. Yep. And we did that for did we do 3 minutes? And then that'll balance this out.
Hold on, can we time out just for a second? I think that's interesting, right?
Yeah.
So the balance board is like, those are in gyms and stuff, right? There's just like a ball in the middle, it's a board, right? And you just try balance, right? As opposed to like to the ground. So what, just doing that with your body does what to your brain?
It'll balance your brain. Just like balancing your brain will balance your feet.
Well,
Yeah.
back
So we did a study where we collected all of this. You know, I had 8 different measures: muscle activity, heart activity, motion, the brain, balance under your feet. The one that was most highly correlated with the brain measures was balance under your feet.
I'm getting a balance board.
Balance boards are good, but you know what, Chris? I tell the golfers, just if you're getting out of balance or having a hard time, stand on one foot. Nobody even has to know you're doing it. Just stand on one foot, and if you can, close your eyes, and it'll automatically start bringing everything back into balance.
That couldn't be cooler. How simple is that? It's free.
That's right. That's right.
You can do it anywhere. How long should we do this for? This is a takeaway. That's what I love about you.
Oh, you can just do it less than a minute. You can, you know, we do it often just for a minute in the lab, and it'll make a difference. But you could do it for 30 seconds. It'd be great. And then the other thing we did with Alan is we put him on a bike, and we got his heart rate up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he tried his best after we got his heart rate up.
Why?
Because the activation in the system helped him get focused, actually, and just roll the balls in. And he got off and he said, that's what I do for acting. He said that it felt just like acting, and that he knew the acting state. He says he does jumping jacks before he goes out on the stage. And especially for an older person, Chris, like us, we got to get our brain up and going, not relaxed.
Tony Robbins is big on that, right? He gets everybody moving before.
It's correct. And moving. Yeah. So when things aren't going good, I don't care if it's in the office or on the golf course, start walking, start moving, do something, and this will clear.
I just gave me goosebumps. This is I'm so excited to share this. Movement. This is, you know, one of my favorite things in life is, Debbie, is simple, profound.
Right.
Right.
Motion is good.
Well, in fact, that's consistent with synchronicity, right? Because, like, you know, when I ask in my history of working with anyone, not just athletes, anybody in anything in life, to describe their peak performances, you know, one of the most frequently, you know this, I'm saying this for the audience, one of the most frequently used descriptors of these peak performances is effortless.
Yeah, that's right.
Right?
Yeah.
Working our butts off to train our minds so stuff gets easy.
Right. But that's why we do all that work, so we can do it effortlessly.
Movement, jumping jacks. He seriously used to do jumping jacks before he record MASH?
Always before he goes on stage or on the show.
For camera, yeah.
Yeah.
Really neat. Okay. I want to talk with you about this fascinating phenomenon, the yips.
Oh.
Now, this is a very interesting thing. I don't know if in our conversation here on this, if we'll be able to bridge the gap. I'm just going to ask you a couple questions about it. Let's talk about what it is, first of all, right, in golf. And then I want to see if we could explore, is there a version of it in life? Like let's just start with, what is the yips?
Well, the yips are spasm, jerk, uncontrollable motion, or freezing that occurs usually right for us before impact in golf, but it also occurs in many sports. For throwing, they can't release the ball, they can't throw accurately. Okay. For archery, it's target panic and it's freezing, and gun shooting has the same. They've tested it in cricket, I think, and other things, but it's that inability to control motion.
What was the last thing? The inability, I'm sorry, to control what?
Control motion.
Control motion, not emotion.
No, yeah, but emotion plays a big part, Chris. That's right.
Okay. So where does it come from? Why does it happen?
Oh, we've been studying it with Mayo since 2000, attempting to look at, the etiology of it and separating out what we consider neurologic yips from psychological. Okay, so a very small percentage is maybe 7% of all yippers is neurologic in its orientation. So we would probably treat those people differently. And the rest of them, the 93%, are psychologically induced. So you would use more of probably a psychological intervention, but both will help.
Okay. So is it this inability to control emotion? You said some of it could be neurological. So that has nothing to do with what you're thinking, right? It's chemicals. It's just physiological.
Yeah, I mean, like if you see people who have a tremor or anything,
Yeah.
they might be more likely to. When we do our studies, we rule all those people out,
Oh.
and we just purely do a yip, study on them. But it's a very small percentage.
So in your research, how did you induce that event? How do you set it up?
Like creating stress in the lab is very hard. Okay, so first of all, we don't need to induce a lot of stress to see the yip. We have EMG on them, and we've had EEG and heart rate and all of that, but mostly it's going to be our EMG and our video camera, etc. And these people will come in. I remember the first study, we had 10 yippers come into the clinic at Mayo, and we watched them yip. I should show you this way. Let's see. This small motion, 75 putts in a row, and they'd walk out and say, "I'm sorry I didn't yip in for you today." Because it's so small in the lab, they can't feel it. But when they get out with their friends and play, it becomes big. And you put anxiety, there's your emotion on top. And now it's so big that they miss the hole. But in the lab, they made most of the putts. So it's not about trying to they all want to beat it and get rid of it and cure it. It's not about that. It's about outsmarting it and staying one step ahead.
How do you outsmart it?
Okay, so a lot of people know it's coming before it comes, right? A lot of them do. Yeah. Anxiety is not the cause. We've tested many times with questionnaire and heart rate stuff, but it exacerbates the condition. And so when it gets big, because you add anxiety, the motion, the tremor or the jerk gets big, now you start missing the hole, or you start missing first base, or whatever it happens to be. So anything we can do to reduce anxiety will be helpful, whether it's neurologic or not, okay? Mm-hmm. When I work with the yippers, I want them to walk away with about 7 different strategies they could use, because who knows on what day which one will work. Right. And what they're going to do is they're going to find, the hand position. I've had players use 4 different hand positions in a round. Position is critical to change first, because as soon as your hands go, let's say on the club or the ball, in the same manner, the brain receives that information, and the same motor program is likely to come out, which is a yip. Okay, if you just adjust your hand slightly or do a reverse overlap or whatever, it wakes up the brain and it says, oh, it's different. And so it has to pay attention now, and it's got a chance of creating a different modified motor program. So we want to change things, and people want, just give me one cure, and it's not going to happen. Because even if it works for a while, as soon as they habituate to it, it's not going to work anymore.
I'm so interested in how this could apply to everything else in life. Like when I just get stuck.
Yes.
Anything. And then I'm hearing from you like, well, just change something up small.
You change something small. You're right.
Change your routine a little bit. Change your approach.
Mm-hmm.
Change your
Move. That's right. You know what, Chris? It's so crazy when they're yippy. Sometimes I can just have them turn out their front foot. It has nothing to do with their hand. You turn your front foot and it changes everything.
It's like tin cup. Like, take all the change out of your right pocket and put it in your left pocket.
That's right. Because the brain, it shakes it up and gets it out of its stuck pattern, and it has to now pay attention, and you've got a chance to create a different motion. And in life, probably what do? We freeze more. Like you say, we get stuck. And it's so important to change something. Drive a different way to work. Take something different in your lunch. All these little things.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Shake it up. I don't remember where exactly I read it. Yeah, I don't remember, but it was. But I wrote down focusing on feel. You had some putters
Oh.
focus. There were 4 different groups, right? You know where I'm going with this?
Yeah, we've done quite a few different interventions over the studies.
All right.
But you want to focus on something past the yip in time. That might be what you're referring to. So if I'm putting and the yip happens here, I want to focus on something past it so that we can keep your brain in it. Because what happens is when people know the yip's coming, they bail. Their consciousness is not going to experience this one more time. So it goes somewhere else and the ball takes off without them.
So this was a study that was not related to the yips, the one I'm thinking about now.
Oh.
Okay. And I think you were asking different athletes, right, who are putting to focus on something, 4 different things.
Like miss, a cue, like miss or target or
right, like
feel.
Yep.
Yeah, I was in Golf Digest.
Oh, of course it was.
I remember.
Okay, good. So what were the 4 things that they were instructed to focus on?
Target was one, feel was one, missing was one, and just saying make it, I think, was the other one.
Make it. Mm-hmm.
Make it. Make it spin. Yeah.
Okay. And what were the findings on that?
Well, what we've known all along is.
Oh, I found it. So the 4 things were, right. Golf Digest. Group A was, or athlete A was thinking about mechanics.
Oh, mechanics. I'm sorry.
Mechanics. And the other, I can't expect you to remember the details of all the 50 billion research studies that you've done when I just give you vagaries. So athlete B was thinking about missing or not missing, but just the same, right? Missing subject, right? And then athlete C was focused on target, and athlete D was focused on feel.
Correct.
So, okay, good. So tell us about the differences there.
Well, the 2 that come up over and over again that work best for the best performers are target and feel. And it can be both. I mean, it's because you can think of 2 things at once. They just got to be in priority in the brain. So target and feel can work. You're just completing the loop, from your feel to the target, whatever it is. Okay. And the worst are miss it and mechanics. And mechanics will put you more on the left side of your brain, which we tend to know, the analytic side, sequential side, etc., that tends to often come in and interfere with performance. The right is creative, intuitive, imaginative.
You see, I'm just like copiously taking notes over here because all I'm thinking about, really, I'm telling you, I'm going off over here because this is why I love golf so damn much. That's why I fell in love with the sport so deeply after I stopped playing hoops after college, because I was like, this is life. Seriously,
right.
Like it's like a mirror,
a microcosm of society,
of all of life, right? So it's like when I think about screwing up, that doesn't inspire me. It does not ever, like, what if I screw this up? Has never been a thought that's elevated me.
Correct.
But even like thinking about the mechanics, which is how do I do this? And again, it can apply to a golf putt, it can apply to a golf swing, it can apply to everything in life. How am I going to reach quota? So I'm thinking about that, not in a planning way, but in like if I'm focusing on the mechanics, I can still do great, but it's not, apparently from your research, if I'm hearing it correctly, as useful as focusing on target and feel. That's really okay. So feel is obviously, that's a physiological thing,
right? But if you focus on target and feel, what you're doing is you're letting the system, your mind and brain, self-organize. So they can do it, their subconscious can do it better than your conscious anytime. So if they self-organize and figure it out, but they know what you want them to do, they'll do it better.
I'm really going to do something.
Yeah. In mechanics, you're picking out pieces, and who knows if the other pieces are going together. Now, If something's off, which it will, it'll get off, you may have to focus a little on mechanics. I'm taking it way inside, or, my arm is not correct. Okay, that's fine, but do it in feel mode, not think mode. Okay, if you're in feel mode, you're in the subconscious. If you're in think mode, you're in the conscious. So especially if you're performing, you want to be in feel mode.
How might that apply? Like, so I do public speaking, right? Like I'll go up on stages and stuff, which is something I never even visualized. I never even thought about that as a possibility when you and I were first meeting, that happened. And so like, public speaking is the number one human fear. Right?
Yeah.
And that people fear the most. And I've gotten very, very nervous. How might I focus on feel for something like that? I know it's totally different than hitting a golf ball.
Okay, Chris, do you go in ahead of time? That's one thing I love to do. And feel the room and feel the audience and feel the people.
Public speaker, huge public speaker.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, all those things, you take in all that receiving, you're taking in all that information, it's just going to fuel you, right? You get a sense and a feel for the group. And those things are very helpful. It's not so much that you're feeling your heart pounding out of your chest. It's more that you're feeling your environment.
You're synchronizing.
Yes.
Right.
Connecting with your group.
I remember one of our lunches where you were telling me about some research you were doing again with putters, but you had two groups. I think the only thing that was different, and maybe I'm getting this completely botched, but was that the instructions were different. One instruction for one group or one athlete was to make this putt, and the other instruction was to let.
Oh, yeah, we have brain maps of that. Yeah. So if they have that thought, the cue or whatever, I'm going to make it. It will be very left-sided because their consciousness is very involved and they're working hard, lots of effort, as you were mentioning earlier. In turn, if they think, let it happen, let it roll into the hole, they're going to more switch to their subconscious. The hemispheres balance out, the synchronicity comes back, and they'll usually make a lot more putts.
That's absolutely fascinating. It's just two words.
I know. Words they carry energy. It changes everything,
But okay, so what is it about the word make? Well, you already said it. It's like, well, no, I don't want to put words in your mouth. Yeah, what like, why is, hey, make this putt? Why does that instruction, why is that word, what is it about that word or the understanding of the word?
I think it takes you to I have to. Expectations. As soon as you get expectations in, you're in big trouble. But Chris, let me tell you the study that we're doing. Okay. What I'm attempting to separate out right now is the brain patterns related to willing it in the hole, zoning it in the hole, putting it in the hole, or forcing it or helping it in the hole.
What was the last one?
It's forcing it or helping it, which is the one you're talking about. The force it in, I'm going to make this thing go in, or which is different in my world from willing it in, right?
What is your hypothesis on this?
Well, if you ask any golfer, can you will it in the hole? A skilled golfer, they'll all say yes. Okay. But the thing is, what are they actually doing, in the brain? Well, I think will it in will be higher activity, but very synchronized. Zone will be lower activity, but synchronized. And then when we get to just putting, they'll be balanced, but they won't be as synchronized, is my theory about it. And then the force it or help it in will be not as synchronized. We'll lose it, and it won't be as efficient.
Have you gathered data on it?
We did one person. We're piloting still because I got to create the conditions that will create those states as well.
Okay.
I can ask them to do it, or ask them to tell me afterwards.
Well, but what if all right, so one of your subjects, or say your subjects aren't really totally clear on what you're asking of them when you say, will this into the hole? Like, what? Huh? How do you have them understand that?
Well, it is whatever it is to them. I've asked them, do you think you can will it in? Yes, I do. But I'm not sure that they do. So the other way, Chris, is we did this study already. You know how sometimes you know the ball's going in before you putt it? Okay,
It's an amazing experience.
that to me is zone it in, right?
Oh,
That would be zone it in. So, and as compared to just a good putt that goes in. So I measured that once. I had the Swedish European Tour players come and they all told me the putts. They had to tell me after they putted if they knew it was going in before. And then I compared it with a whole bunch of putts that went in, but they didn't have the I know it. And the brain maps are very different. They're all balanced, but the ones that I know it ahead of time are very quiet.
Quiet?
Quiet. Less activity. Because they already know it. And I'm measuring consciousness.
I remember the first time you ever gave me those pictures.
Yeah.
With all those beautiful rainbows of colors.
That's right.
On the brains, right? And I remember that lunch. I remember I took those as right after you gave me those. I was given a talk to a bunch of business owners. I brought it in there. That was actually my content. It was from you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was talking about quieting the mind and balancing hemispheres.
Picture's worth 1,000 words.
Yeah, right?
Yep.
Huh. So, do you still have a bunch of animals?
Oh, I'm down, Chris. I used to, but I have, let's see, 5 horses, 1 donkey, 4 dogs, a rabbit, a couple of turtles. I think that's it.
Yeah. What are some of the more exotic animals that you had?
I've had 3 monkeys, a zebra. I've had llamas, wallabies.
Wallabies?
Yeah, goats, pigs, sheep.
Oh my goodness.
Tortoise. My tortoise was awesome. I had 2 tortoises.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
That's so neat.
Yeah, a lot of different ones.
That's cool. Where do you go to buy a monkey?
Well, it was a while back, and there was a guy on the other side of town that would put them in the paper and advertise them. So I just got them out of the newspaper.
How about
Now it's Craigslist, you know.
You could just go to Craigslist and get a monkey.
Well, I've seen they advertise the little ones, pocket monkeys, they call them.
Okay.
Yeah, but no, you'd have to go to the exotic animal finder to get them now.
Is that where you got your zebra? Your zebra?
Yes, it is actually. I found my zebra in California. I was actually looking for a Zorse, which is a cross between a zebra and a horse. And this guy used to raise them, but he stopped doing it. So he just had zebras. So I
All right, I'll take one.
brought one back. Yeah.
What did you name it?
Zoe.
Zoe the zebra. It's brilliant.
Yeah, she was fun.
You know, if I have the privilege of being able to interview you again in the future, I would really love to talk about your work with horses.
Oh.
Yeah. Talk about synchronization, right?
Oh, it's amazing. Not what the horses do with it. They train the golfers. It's amazing.
Oh yeah, that's perfect. Can we do that sometime in the future?
Sure.
Cool
Yeah. And you know, when we started, Chris, the first session we ever did, we had athletes and business people in together. The very first session we did, running a group of horses and people to learn skills. Yeah. And
okay, that'll be our whole episode if you're cool with that.
I'd love to do it.
Oh, heck yeah. Okay, we're going to set that up. That's beautiful. Can you let everyone know where to go to get your goodies? The Opti, the products.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our headset and our apps, we have 4 of them in there, are on myoptibrain.com. And you just pay once, so to speak, and you can all 4 apps. They're always a package. One of them, OptiBrain Measures. OptiTrain Train's a good place. And in there, we have a lot of different sports that you can watch videos of as you're training your brain, because your brain runs the video. And then we have OptiCalm, which is really efficiency. It's just lowering activity. It's good for anxiety. And we have one called OptiConfidence. So that's a combination of synchronizing the brain 70% and 30% efficiency. So it puts the 2 together. That's why we call it confidence.
That's amazing. Well, I'm going to make sure I'll put, so it's myoptibrain.com. I'll make sure that that's all in the
And
show.
then that program with the horses you're talking about, Chris, we call Better Your Best. It's betteryourbest.net. And we have an ultimate experience where people come do archery, horses, a lot. We do cross-mental training. And this is a way that we can get the athletes or whoever there faster, because we take them out of their dominant sport, which is where they have all their protection and denials and coping strategies built in, and we take them into something that is totally new, but their core movement pattern and their core personality all come out. And then we can help them adjust anything because it's not threatening there, and then take it back to their main sport.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, we can get them there so much faster doing this, and it's fun. You know, they love the archery. Yeah.
That's neat. Well, I'm impressed. We really stayed focused there, my friend. We covered
good
territory.
It was fun, Chris.
Yeah, we knew it would be. And I really, really appreciate you. I always have really appreciated you. And I love that you made time for me and my Tough Talks tribe today.
Well, you're doing great things as well. And people benefit.
Thank you, my dear friend.
Mm-hmm.
So I will look forward to episode 2.
Okay.
Until then, you do well.
Always happy to talk about the horses.
Okay, then we're going to do it.
All right. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks. I don't know if it was noticeable to you or not, but during that call, or that conversation, I was having flashbacks, great ones, of those lunches that I kept referencing. And I was having a flood of memories of all this stuff that I learned from her. I didn't forget the stuff. I forgot how much of it I learned from her, though. She's brilliant. She's just so cool. I'm very blessed to have had her friendship for these 3 decades and to learn so much from her, because we're into the same stuff, helping people crush it. So, I know that my audience is not golfers now. Nowadays, it's not. Well, that was a weird sentence for me to say, because for a large portion of my life, my audience was 100% golfers. But I know there's plenty of golfers watching. So I hope you get tons of takeaways here. But, I was working during this conversation on bridging the gap that I hope you noticed, between the application of this brilliance that is specifically coming from observations on performance in the sport of golf or archery, and applying it to all of life, right? So, I'll tell you what, if you have any thoughts on that, if this interview, if this podcast episode sparked any of the thoughts, if you're not a golfer and this interview sparked any thoughts for you on how you might be able to do some things differently to increase your peak performance and whatever it is that you do, I'd love to hear those stories. I'd love to hear. Just send me a note. Hit me up. All right. I'm getting a balance board. As soon as I stop recording this, I'm going right to Amazon, buying me a balance board. But when I don't have, if I'm on the road, close your eyes, stand on one foot for 30 seconds, and that balances your brain, and that increases the probability of you being a badass. Isn't that amazing? And jumping jacks. That's so cool. Alan Alda did jumping jacks before we start recording. Get the heart rate up. Balance the brain. Synchronicity. So cool. All right, you guys. Thanks as always for tuning in. And until next time, create miracles.